So here we go again. Good morning.
How's it going? Another podcast.
Another podcast, yeah.
Haven't been on one for a while, actually.
Had a couple of guests recently.
I guess they've been replaced.
Got to say, Dave Hamlet's getting very excited about how his episode is climbing up the rankings. He's doing very well.
Well, to keep at it.
The
RevOps one is
The RevOps is the hard one to beat. That's top of the tree. Some of the Roger Martin Fag ones have been very popular. But relationship selling is coming up the charts fast. I think he's doing us a good job in promoting it. Well done, Dave. Good on you. If you haven't heard that one yet, go back and listen. He's a cracking listen. Yeah.
Well, good. Well, I was looking at some news last night, business news.
Oh, yeah, go on.
You're a culinary connoisseur, aren't you?
You think?
No, you're all a ton from your hors d'oeuvre.
Okay, it sounds like a quiz coming up.
Anyway, I saw this headline. It said, Pizza Hut releases new update that could change the future of the chain's pizza. It will improve the pizza eating experience for the customer. I immediately thought they're going to take out the troughs and give them a knife and fork. Turns out not, though. What they're actually going to do is change the pizza boxes.
Change the boxes?
Change the boxes. So they're no longer going to taste like the actual pizza, I think. So that was the plan. So, but yeah, I thought that was quite interesting.
I think the loyals will have a word with us.
But no, good. It's all about sustainable packaging, apparently. They've been trialling some stuff in Vietnam with bamboo. It's a good news story. So well done. They're differentiating themselves with their pizza boxes. Yeah,
we just go to show it's one of the P's. One of the 5 P's, packaging.
Do you want another news story?
Go on, you're on a roll here.
This one is a bit more. Are you into conkers? You ever play conkers?
Well, we've got a big conker tree in our garden. I have bucketfuls of conkers. Well, we give them to local primary school and they use them for counting practice.
Okay.
Who knew?
No, Ethan got detention for playing with conkers at school recently. But, so if you're not into conkers, I'm not into conkers, but I saw this article. Big turmoil at the moment in the conker world.
In the conker world?
There's been a scandal. A conker scandal.
Someone soaked him in vinegar.
No, it's more than that. He's been the conker king, allegedly, as he is, has allegedly used a steel nut that he's painted up to win. So the story goes that, that someone said, I'm suspicious of foul play and have expressed my surprise to the organisers. Dave, conker enthusiast from Lincoln, said, as if it's not suspicious enough for the event's top judge to take part in his own tournament and win. Right?
It's a few red flags here.
And win. He has also obliterated opponent's nut in one hit and then been found with a metal conker. I think put two and two together.
It's more than a smoking gun, that one, I think.
More than a smoking gun.
Yeah, okay. So
do you want one more?
I'll give it one more. Got to roll now.
And this is kind of relevant. I'll tie these all into what we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
But and you may or may not be aware of this either. Victoria's Secret.
I think I saw this story in the paper.
They failed to stay relevant with a tired pageant of Demonte thongs. Now that is, who would have known? So, but in this day and age, apparently it's all fallen flat. They had all these supermodels come, Cher, everybody else come for this big relaunch of their product, but it's fallen flat because it's 2024.
No one wants that
This
anymore.
is kind of like,
Well, the story I heard about Victoria's Secret was that they're now focusing on 50 plus as their models.
So, size or age?
I think we'll break off at that point.
No, but so what they what they did was they tried to go for a more woke approach to lingerie, and it's been very unsuccessful. Wow. But apparently sexiness can be inclusive, said their ex-brand president.
Ex-brand president.
So there we go. So I thought, well, actually, what we're going to talk about today, GTM, go to market. Yeah. You've got to get all these things right, haven't you?
You've got to understand.
You've got to understand your market.
Target market. What your value proposition is.
You got to have nuts of steel. And you've got to sustain yourself with pizza. There we go.
Sustainable packaging. Let's try and wrap all that together into a coherent and listenable to podcast. Good luck. Hello and welcome to another episode of the SME Growth podcast from Wellmeadow. I'm Dave Parry and my partner in crime, Rich Buckle, is back. Hi, Rich.
Back, yeah. But you're wishing you hadn't got me back.
Well, for those of you that have just had the pleasure of the intro, you're probably wondering how we managed to get this far through the podcast and tie those subjects into our topic today, which is go-to-market strategies, GTM, been around for decades. But now it's being talked about a lot more and not always helpfully, actually. Do you not feel that there's a lot of mystique around it and people maybe get the wrong end of the stick? And
I think it's probably one of those that on one reading of it, it's kind of blindingly obvious, but actually it's quite a lot of hard work and needs a lot of probably discipline and consistency to execute well.
Yeah, good. So just a quick review of how we got to here. We are now on episode 91. I think it's fair to say that's the final straight to get ourselves to the big 100. So what were the last 3 episodes? Last week we were together again and we talked about when should a CEO step down.
Okay.
And we joked that if you get sent a link to that episode, then the answer to that question should be self-evident.
Yes.
Entertaining episode there, actually. Quite enjoyed that. Now, the one before that was the one we talked about at the beginning of our intro just there, episode 89 on relationship selling with Dave Hamlet, climbing up our charts at the moment, trying to get up to the most listened to podcast, and he's going for it in promoting it amongst his networks and pushing the word around. But it is, I have to say, a cracking listen. He's very listenable to sort of chap. Lots of great sound bites there, and if you just look at a couple of the shorts on YouTube, you'll get the gist of it.
Yep.
So that was 89. And then 88, we had another guest before that, Amy Snowden, ex of this parish.
Yes.
10 years ago, she's gone on and made a career for herself in e-commerce and Shopify in particular.
Yep, she's building her own company brand at the moment.
She is, yeah.
So best of luck to her.
Sustainable trousers for women, made in the UK, all that stuff. So we wish her the best of luck for that.
Yep.
And go and check out her episode. That is also doing phenomenally well up the charts at the moment. I think that's getting served up by the YouTube algorithm to all sorts of different
I may have
audiences.
found a common denominator here.
Okay.
I should just leave now.
So that means we've got to make sure today is a banger so that it dispels that myth. So here we are today, episode 91, and as Rich just said there, go-to-market strategies.
Yeah.
Where do we even start with that? That's a big old subject, isn't it?
And I think this is something that's cropping up in quite a bit of our work at the moment as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're finding people either looking at going into new markets, and which go-to-market strategy is kind of maybe more traditionally looked at, but also thinking about their existing markets maybe in a new way.
Yeah, I think it's more that bit is relevant for most of the companies we deal with, because there aren't many new startups looking to go into a new market or diversification strategies going on compared to just want to grow a bit, right?
Yeah.
And this, I put this in the context, we did RevOps, didn't we, a little while ago, and that was an episode that's done very well. That's currently our number 1. And RevOps kind of takes the whole soup to nuts process from getting a stranger identified, taking them through the whole process of acquaintance, opportunity, deal, selling them, delivering it well, getting the cash in, and getting the referrals from them. That's the RevOps bit, getting all your tech stack lined up. Whereas go-to-market focuses more at the front end of all of that. Mm-hmm. And the bit that I've been trying to impress upon people, and I'm getting a bit boring now, I'm sure, talking to clients about this, is that you've got to take this seriously, because people always assume that lead generation and customer acquisition is the job of marketing. Yeah. And there'll be lots of marketing people listening, half of whom are maybe shouting at their headphones at the moment, well, it is. And the other half might be saying, oh, thank goodness someone said that, because salespeople have got a critical role to play in this. Yeah. And my experience, just anecdotally, looking at a few companies, is that sales have kind of abdicated that because there's a marketing department. And, well, that's your job, isn't it? You go and give me some leads. You know, I haven't got enough leads. Let's blame marketing, or let's give marketing some more resource, or let's get them to do another campaign, send some more emails out, or whatever. And yet salespeople have got an absolutely pivotal role in that, not just advising marketing, the voice of the customer stuff, but doing some stuff as well. Yeah. So that all comes into go-to-market.
Yeah, and I think that then, again, does tie back onto the RevOps piece around breaking down those silos between marketing and sales, customer service, and actually everybody trying to work towards one goal around revenue growth. Whereas and that, you know, so there is the Venn diagram of GTM and RevOps is a
big
reasonable overlap. So.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say RevOps just goes a bit further downstream, you know, after you've hooked the customer and you're delivering the service and you're getting the cash in, all that type of thing. So go-to-market probably starts a bit more upstream.
So should we go through some just headlines of what GTM?
Yeah, and I think the important context here is don't think about this, like you said just now, if you're just trying to enter a new market. This is, consider your market you're already in. Assume you want to grow. This is the SME Growth podcast after all. So, hopefully you're in the right place. And go back, if you haven't already got a documented go-to-market strategy, write it now as if you wrote it 5 years ago, perhaps, or just refresh it now and think about it from the context of what market do we think we're in, what product do we think we're selling, how are we selling it.
And I think it's a good tool as well to maybe just test some assumptions about your market that you may think, well, it's always been this way. We've been selling here for 20 years, 25 years. We know the market, everything else. Well, do you really? are the dynamics in the market changing in terms of the people that you're dealing with?
Yeah.
And we've seen that quite a lot where, kind of people have had relationships with other businesses, customers, suppliers for 20, 30, 40 years. But as those people retire, move on, new generation comes in, different mindset, different perspective, different objectives, all of that. So it's worth putting that lens on when you're looking at GTM as well.
And I think if there's sort of several points to this, several stages, and we're going to go through those, but if you needed to come up with some sort of overarching bit, it's essentially, and you hear this sometimes in interviews on other podcasts when they're interviewing new businesses or whatever, you say, well, what problem are you trying to solve? How are you solving it? And how are you going to get your customers?
Yeah.
And essentially that's your go-to-market strategy, what you're doing, who's it for, and how are you going to get them to find out about you. It's almost as simple as that, but there's so much complexity and layers within all of that, and we tend to get a bit bogged down in it. So let's start with identifying the problem we're trying to solve.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this in previous ones before, haven't we?
Because if you're going to try and sell something to somebody, then actually understanding whether there's a need and there's a problem, you've got to have a pretty good understanding of where.
Yeah, so it's a bit chicken and egg in a way. Do you come up with your value proposition first and then work out how to define the problem that solves, or vice versa? I think the value proposition really brings them together anyway, because to have value, you've got to have a product that does something which matches a customer's need for something that needs fixing. And for those of you that are students of the business model canvas, you'll be aware that there's a sister thing called the value proposition canvas, and that talks about very clearly what are your products and services, your gain enhancers or your pain reducers. They're all the things within your value proposition that match up with how your customer sees things, which are either gains that they want, pains that they have and they want to get rid of, or things that they just have to do as part of their job, and they need to be, or they would benefit from being better at that. So that's kind of a broad framework of how the value proposition canvas deals with the job.
Yeah. And then I think it's also making sure that you've got product market fit. So if you, and looking at that in terms of you've identified your value proposition, people, do people want it? Can you actually, get that? Is there a product there that people actually, can you turn that into a product that people want? And then looking at, well, can we actually scale that into a business model? Because, I suppose we've seen before with some of our clients and with some of our own projects, you can make a great product, but if people don't want to buy it, you haven't got a business model.
Exactly. There's that old phrase, is there a gap in the market? And as one of our clients said recently, not only is there a gap in the market, but is there a market in the gap?
Yeah.
And it's understanding that. Now, the key point about all of this and however you do it is there will be a lot of detail behind it, right? Because there's so much stuff. But you've got to be able to succinctly describe it in a sentence.
Yeah.
Not even the elevator pitch. You have that as an option maybe. But if I had to describe our value proposition in a word, a phrase, a sentence, and a paragraph, what would each of those versions of our value proposition be? And is that well understood by everybody who has to touch it?
Yeah.
So think about the output here. Start with end in mind. What are we trying to get from this exercise?
Well, I was looking at some pitch deck examples yesterday, and I was just how succinct they were, and how almost you think, well, that should have so much detail in it.
Yeah.
But really honing it down to that point of saying, I could explain this in one sentence and you're going to get it.
And you've got to get people's attention. And it's when we're told to niche down all the time, and nobody wants to niche down because they're very conscious of what they're cutting off by identifying. It's the same thing. People haven't got the capacity to listen to you for half an hour to get all the nuances.
Yeah.
You've got to grab them in the headline. And the headline is 10 words max, 6 words maybe. So you've got to be able to get that value proposition fully honed so that people on hearing it for the first time think, right, either that's for me, that solves a problem I've got or helps me have a gain, or it doesn't, and move on.
So all of that then is identify the problem that you're going to solve.
I think just a key footnote on that is whose job is it to do that? And if you're sat there in marketing thinking it's your job, you're right. And not many marketeers do this, but you should be considering market research, focus groups, customer advisory boards, whatever. That's part of marketing's job. But if you're sitting in sales thinking, is that my job? You're right as well. It absolutely flipping is. That you're the salespeople are in touch with customers all day long. And if they've got anything about them, they should be asking broader questions than just how to sell now, and understanding what other pain points does a customer have and how did this solution fit it and so on. So both marketing and sales have got to work really closely together.
And customer service as well. What problems do you see coming back from the products? What problems do you see from service? So it's really everybody's responsibility and ultimately the board's responsibility to make sure that this is done properly.
Yeah, so you're right. If you're sitting on the board and you don't think that anyone around the table can succinctly say what your value proposition is, knowing that marketing, sales and service have all been somehow involved and all agree on it, then you better start there, because if you don't know what you're selling, what sort of business have you got? Everyone needs to be clear on that.
So once you've identified the problem, next step is around defining the target audience. So
and I'd start with total addressable market, which is huge, right? Even I was listening to a presentation the other day from HubSpot. As everybody knows, we're partners of them. We have to watch lots of their presentations. There's so much stuff coming out of them at the moment. But they are masters at this stuff. They're great mentors in a way. You see how they do it. And they define their total addressable market as absolutely enormous. Something like 10% of the world's industry or something crazy, because they know that nearly every business has got some need for a platform that ties all this stuff together. So they wouldn't say they're trying to sell to all of those at any one time. That's a different thing. But total addressable market at least means that you're in the right place. You're fishing in a big enough pond. There's no point just trying to sell, some tiny niche where there's only one customer and they're in Timbuktu and you got no way of getting there. So define your market for sure, but define it first as total addressable market. And then to start to narrow it down.
Look at that. Start looking at things like ICPs, so ideal customer profiles. Looking at those, looking at the buyer personas.
And I think the point with ICPs is you've got to define it in a way that you can actually use it. So there's no point saying it's all the ginger haired people if you haven't got a database that says what colour hair someone's got. So you need to use stuff like size of company in terms of employees and turnover, geography, what industry they're in, and maybe some other things you can find out from their website, on their blog and that type of stuff. So you need an ICP definition that you can use rather than an airy-fairy, someone who wants to replace their telephone exchange system next year. Well, how are you going to know that? People don't necessarily write about that. So.
And then start looking at, so once you've got that ICP, what are their pains? What are their gains? What are they looking to get from the product? Is it to help them with their career? Is it to help them solve a specific problem? Where are the pain points? Is it, I don't know, use your imagination, but it's going a lot deeper than just defining it from the demographics.
In our example, people who have to produce a board report every month and they have to do it from scratch using Excel sheets, and we come in and we automate that for them using the CRM system or whatever. A pain is that they have to waste half a day doing something that actually doesn't add any value at all. That's real pain. So you're right, you're matching up there, your ICP, your ideal customer profile with your value proposition, which helps you to craft your message around how you're going to sort of communicate it a little bit.
And then buyer personas as well. We've touched on that before in previous episodes. I'm trying to remember which episode it was.
It's way back,
it was possibly number 5, maybe, very early.
Yeah, very early. Go back and have a look way down. Series 1, that was.
Series 1.
Season 1.
Somewhere in the first 10 episodes we talked about buyer personas. So
this is where you give them all the alliterative names, like we've got, Sales Steve, Marketing Mike, that type of thing. So go for those. And then you've got to do some research on the companies that are in your total addressable market that meet your ICP. And that should reduce down to a target market. And I'm doing a lot of work with some clients at the moment on their target market strategy. And it's fascinating because people almost take this for granted. They just assume that their whole audience is their target market. Well, it can't be. If you look at Wellmeadow, us, for example, if you look at the UK and assume we're trying to sell to people who already use HubSpot because we're getting quite a good name for rejuvenating, failed or poor implementations, there's 11,000 companies I can immediately identify from a database. We've got more than 10 employees, more than 5 million turnover, and they're in the UK and they use HubSpot. Well, I can't communicate with all 11,000 of those at once. I need to boil that down using my ICP to a target market. Short of the list.
And then I guess another part of the research as well is looking at what competitors are doing, who else is in the market, those kind of just general kind of market research.
Well, understand that company, and you're right, you've got to, the research starts at the company themselves. So what have they got on their website, what have they got on their blog, what have they got on their socials, what do we know about from LinkedIn, who they've got working there, where they've been before, all that type of stuff, what are their competitors doing, what are your competitors doing to them. You've got to understand this landscape. Now, traditionally, this has taken quite a long time to do, right? Because it's a labor-intensive task, which is why people send out blast emails that all say the same thing. But I'm going to put a bit of a shout out now for something that we'll probably cover in a future episode. But it's a new feature that HubSpot's just released. It won't surprise you to know that it's using AI, because unless you've got AI on it these days, you can't sell it. It's still in beta. There's only 200 partners around the world using it, and we're one of them. So honoured to be on that program. But it uses AI to to do this whole process of you feed it someone in your target market, it'll go away, it'll look at their website, their blogs, and their social. It'll look through all your CRM to see what records you've got that relate to it, and it will then craft the outreach strategy for that company for you. It's absolutely flipping amazing to think how much, you just wouldn't have done it before because you didn't have time, unless you were picking, one a month to do or something. So the way it's accelerating our ability to get very, very tailored messaging right down to an individual person within an individual company. It's quite an exciting space.
And I can sense some people are going to be recoiling at that because but it is coming, and the productivity gains here and the opportunities are massive.
Exactly.
I think I did a piece of just segmentation work recently for someone, and it would have taken days to do. I fed it into ChatGPT, and I had the answers within half an hour. Yeah, exactly. It's just...
Yeah, and the other thing that's allied to that is the people will have heard of lead forensics, where you get to know which companies have been on your website, even though it doesn't tell you who. It's quite an expensive product, but clearly of great value to those that benefit it. HubSpot have just come out with their version, which they've got called Buyer Intent, which uses all their bits and bobs as well. Now, the bit that's going to be contentious about this is that to sign up for that program, you have to agree to the terms and conditions, which means that they can use the data of who's visiting your site in their general enrichment of their model. So whilst they won't share that data or sell it or tell somebody else that someone's been on your website, they will use it in AI terms to generically learn about buyer intent. Which means as this gets hold, and assuming that everybody just ticks the accept conditions box, which not everybody will, but let's say 9 out of 10 do, then we're going to get some really rich signals about who out there that you've never even met, never even heard of, is a company name that's maybe looking for exactly what you do and looking for a company exactly like yours to do it. And we're not there yet, but that's not far around the corner. I reckon we'd be having a podcast in a year's time saying that's now doing it. So that's all part of research. And marketing should be leading on this. Sales have got a massive input because they're speaking to customers all the time. But whoever does customer advisory boards, focus groups and so on, who's doing that stuff?
I think there's maybe a really nice blend here of marketing using the AI tools to really kind of do some more broad brush desk-based stuff, but actually sales coming in with that more human. We spoke to the customer, we've understood this, we've got that real stories to tell, and maybe between the two of them,
I think you're right. That's traditionally
a real nice
maybe
mix.
It hasn't happened that way, but that's how you would split it. I would still say marketing. I'm not criticising marketing people here in this sense because I know they do lots of other things and they're generally overloaded in these areas. But one thing that nearly all marketing departments I come across miss out is proper market research, and they should be going to meet customers. Or I've done it on behalf of customers before, and I've run customer advisory boards, and I get to interview their customers in a group without. At my client, their customer, their supplier there, and we're just talking to them and all shooting the breeze. What do you think about this? And what's the competition like and what you need? They should be doing that. And it's someone in marketing should lead it ideally, but it hardly ever gets done. So that's all under the sort of the research bit.
So we've got identifying the problem, define target audience, do your research, and then decide on the key messaging.
Built on your value proposition. Once again, a word, a phrase, a sentence, a paragraph. I picked that up from Alistair Campbell on his podcast. He says any political message needs to be able to summarise in a word, a phrase, a sentence, and a paragraph. And I think actually any message that you're selling is really applicable to business. And it needs a bit of thinking about. I'm not saying that we've got ours off pat yet. It's something we're working on.
And then after that, start looking at the buyer's journey. Again, we've done a podcast on this, so probably don't need to wash the car too much on
You're
this.
right,
But
awareness, consideration, decision journey.
Decision, and then looking at kind of top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel.
I would probably just extend that bit from when we recorded that podcast to go a bit upstream awareness, which sounds a bit counterintuitive. How they're not a buyer, right? They're people sat there with a need that haven't yet even engaged in the awareness process. And I think that ACD process, awareness, consideration, decision, has been written by people who live more in a marketing space because you first get to find out about a company when they've started researching generically the awareness bit. And I'm saying that there's something advanced of that where we should be going out and introducing ourselves, taking ourselves, go to market, if you like, going and finding them first.
Salt the oats.
They're not yet in the awareness stage. They're pre-awareness. They have need, pain, needs for gains, whatever, but they don't know that you exist. So that's part of the buyer's journey. I've done quite a bit of work with one client on that bit alone. It's a whole area in itself, customer acquisition strategies. So we'll come back to that in a later episode.
So then once you've got the buyer's journey and your content, whatever, mapped out, you've got to pick your marketing channels. Again, lots has been said on this. It's probably pretty obvious. You've got all your social channels, your PPC, your organic.
All that stuff. Emails and exhibitions and all that stuff. Yeah. All I would say about that is that there is a danger, because that's become so digital in the last few years and so easy to sit behind a desk and churn out masses of it in terms of content and all the places you can put it out, LinkedIn and all that sort of stuff. It's become almost too easy to ignore everything else.
Yeah.
And this is where I said at the beginning, salespeople are almost relying too much on marketing to be the sole source of leads because they can do all this stuff. There's huge volumes coming out. But it's not just that, as we know. That only works for a certain segment of the audience and even for certain markets.
Yeah.
And there's an argument, we were talking to somebody overseas who does a lot of work on go-to-market strategies in Israel, actually, which, by the way, is fascinating to be doing business with someone in Israel at the moment with everything going on. You can have chats about it. But they were saying that in a service industry setting, 95% of your work is going to come from either existing customers or referrals, which you will not be able to get hold of using traditional marketing outbound or inbound strategies. Yeah. You've got to activate those referrals, encouragements and approaches. So it's a very different approach. And even for those manufacturers out there who do sell products, if that product has got a heavy service element associated with it, it's not box shifting, then you're almost falling into a similar category. You can't just say we sell X, do you want to buy one? You've got to think about this more in terms of building trust and establishing a relationship.
Yeah, and we did a piece of work on our own, where our work comes from, and 95% pretty much is referral. Yeah. And so you start thinking about, okay, well, how do you empower and engage your referrers, and how do you build that?
Ironically, our largest client is the one in the 5%. One of the exception that proves the rule.
So, but yeah, and I think as well there is a growing trend of people wanting to connect with people again. And I think that was maybe Dave Hamlet picked up on that in terms of relationship selling. I think we've been through a lot of kind of let's do everything digitally, AI, all that stuff is good, but I think it's almost having that the pendulum swings the other way, and people want human contact. Let's build some relationship. Let's talk to people. Let's kind of.
And COVID's got a lot to answer for on all sorts of fronts, right? Yeah. But it's caused this major sort of pendulum swing, going too far one way and then too far back again. We're all confined within our homes for a long time, and then we like the work from home thing. Now we're all trying to get out again. Everyone's still trying to find a new norm, really. But you're right. I think there's this clamour for a bit of human contact, especially for people who are stuck at home.
Well, and you're seeing it even in the rise of book sales. Book sales are going through the roof as people want to actually have physical, tactile experiences rather than stuff on a Kindle or just watching things and all of that. Which, can't be a bad thing.
Absolutely. So we talked about marketing channels there, and I think people know enough about that. You've got to do all that as well, but the go-to-market strategy is so much broader, and we almost want to downplay that bit because that's going to happen anyway. It's the rest that's missing, all this other stuff.
So I guess once you've gone, you've got your messaging and you've got your content and you've done your, you've got some leads through marketing, say, then your sales plan's got to kick in. Sales strategy. So you'll have a marketing strategy, which is all that previous stuff. Sales strategy has to dovetail absolutely with that. And it's the customer in this process, right? It's further downstream. Sales is the customer for marketing. So marketing can't come up with its strategy in isolation. No. It needs to know all that stuff we've talked about earlier, ideal customer profiles, target addressable market, total addressable markets, target accounts, and then support the sales guys. And you see this again in lots of firms where marketing focuses a lot on the stuff they pump out through social media and emails and websites, but not so much on the sales collateral. Yeah. We've got to have sales enablement as a major part of what marketing do here. What do your sales guys need so that they can hit that target between the eyes, get their attention and follow through? And hit it and do that quickly as well. So there's always that kind of, if only we had that document, if only we had this thing, because this customer wants to know about this particular aspect of our service or our product or whatever. And we're always kind of going through that process of, as you meet new people, they want new things. So if marketing can support that by making really great, good-looking, informative, engaging content, but rather than just to hook people into the ecosphere, to really help guide and nurture prospects, then there's a lot of value in that. So
developing a sales strategy is it's definitely a subject in its own right, and we can come back to that. And I think in the next podcast, we're going to talk a little bit more about the thing called customer acquisition strategies, which is just a subset of sales strategies, really. Yeah. But I think that's deserving a bit of attention because it's often overlooked. We just presume that people will come to us, fill in a form, answer an email, pick up the phone, whatever they're going to do, and they become a customer. It doesn't work that way. No. It's a lot harder than that in most cases, isn't it?
Yeah, and then so once sales strategy is done, you've got to set some goals for this as well. You've got to have things that are measurable, so well, how do we know what does success look like?
Yeah.
Have we got a definition of that, or are we just gonna? And I think in a way, sometimes that's where these kind of strategies, go to market, whatever, start to fall down a little bit. If you haven't got something that says, well, how do we know whether we've succeeded here?
Yeah. And don't believe your own propaganda.
Yeah.
If you think you've got it right and you're measuring things like likes on your social posts or contacts on LinkedIn and stuff, you got it. You're just doing that vanity metric thing again.
Yeah, vanity metric.
And make sure you've got a feedback loop in there. If we think we're solving customers' problems using our product, have we asked the guys who've delivered the solution, did that actually solve the customer's problem or not? Did we actually ask the customer, did that solve that problem? Or do they do it actually for some other reason than we realised?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. And then make sure you've got some KPIs in there that really work for your business rather than just some generic set of KPIs. Make sure it's actually really working for what you need.
Yeah.
And then finally, the last stage is around just getting all your processes in place, which seems kind of obvious, but...
Well, that's another episode in itself as well, isn't it? How do you automate this stuff? How do you really nail it down so that as you scale, everybody's understood what you're going on? And even down to induction and onboarding of new people, do they know what your value proposition is? Do they know how you got here? Do they know your understanding of the market? And what are you giving them as their challenges? Have they got a list of, say, 30 companies you're trying to get into? Do they know what the split is in their job between biz dev, account management, general marketing? Has anybody actually explained to them how many people get taken on as salespeople? Just say go and sell. Yeah. Well, in which area? Are we focusing more on selling, cross-selling from existing customers? Are we going for referrals, loyalty programs? Are we going completely new rainmaker stuff? Hunting rather versus farming. Loads in there.
There's a lot.
Well, I want to come back and say there's not enough time in this episode to do it, but I think we need to come back and talk about customer acquisition strategies and the sales strategy part of that. So if we get to do that in the next episode, look down the list of episodes on here. Maybe come back next week if you're listening to this one as it's dropped, and we'll talk a bit more about that.
Excellent.
All right, take a breath. Well, thank you very much for listening to another episode of the SME Growth podcast from Wellmeadow. Try and just come up with something interesting and different, maybe even useful for you in your businesses as owners and managers of small and medium-sized enterprises. As ever, I could please ask you to pass on the word of what we're doing, just like Dave's done, our guest from a couple of weeks ago. Put the word out there, put it on your socials, tell your mate in the pub, and in the meantime, good luck with your business.